Yo, how you doing? Just out in the old Mercedes. So, I'm just gonna do a quick live on the number one secret, guys, to flipping infantry that will pay you back forever. The reason it works is because it's a pretty obvious thing as well, but a lot of people don't take advantage of it consistently. So the number one secret to flipping inventory that will pay you back forever is connections. Okay, building connections. So I always say you're one connection away from a deal. Literally one new connection away from doing a deal. The great thing about when you make connections and you actually do a deal with one of your connections is, what I look at is not just the deal that I'm doing with my connections. I look at what we call LTV. It's called lifetime value. The lifetime value of that one connection that you've made can be worth like thousands and thousands of dollars, pounds or euros just from that one connection that you make. You know, when I look back at some of the connections that I've made thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands off some of these connections that I've made because I've done repeat business. It's the lifetime value of that one connection that you make. So when you do a deal with a connection, you've got to think long term. You've got to think about that lifetime value of that one connection that you've done business with and how many more deals you can do with that one connection. If you can do multiple deals with those connections over the years long term, that is worth like hundreds and hundreds of thousands to you personally. What a lot of people don't realize as well with building connections is some people think that when you've built connections you just stop and you don't need to make any more connections, and that is so wrong in the infantry flipping business. You've got to be obsessed, addicted to making connections like every week, you know. I make new connections pretty much every day, every single day. And the reason I do that is because, firstly, a lot of deals can come from brand new connections. Secondly, you're always one deal away from that connection that you've made. You're just one deal away from that one connection you've made. That one connection that you've made, you might not necessarily do a deal with them today or tomorrow, okay? But you've got to take a macro look, not micro, which is short term, micro, long term. You've got to take a long-term view of all your connections that you make. No, I might not do a deal with them today or tomorrow, but I might do a deal with them in 3, 6, 12 months time. And that's how you've got to look with your connections that you make. Don't ever think that you can make connections and you're going to do business with them like immediately, because that's just not the reality. Sure, some new connections might offer you stock straight away, but you've got to take a long-term view. It's a long-term investment when you are spending time building contacts. You know, all that time and effort you put in to building your contact lists, your email lists, you've got to think of that as a long-term thing that will pay you back forever. You know, if you are not making connections consistently in this business, you are not going to be making much money in this business. I can assure you, okay? The ones that stay in this game for long term are the ones that are consistently making new connections every single week across whatever product category Oh, that was a loud Ferrari. So yeah, that's a secret to this business, is building connections and doing it consistently. And anyone who comes into this game that does that, like just does that alone, keeps building new connections and keeping in touch with the new connections and keeps building new connections, that's what you will see happen in your business. You will see money start coming in each month on the back of those new connections that you make. Don't ever underestimate building new connections consistently. People think that they might have built a few thousand connections and that's it, they're content with that, and they think, oh, I've got a few thousand connections, that's enough. It's never ever enough. You will never have enough new contacts or new connections, ever. You'll never have enough, whether you've got 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, 100,000. You will never ever have enough connections in your lifetime. It's just how it works in this game, because it's like any business. It is a numbers game. It's a numbers business. The amount of deals that you do are very related to the number of contacts that you make and stay in contact with. It's a correlation. It's like, the amount of money you can make in this business is very related to the amount of contacts that you make in this business. That's basically how it works in this game. So to me, the number one secret in this business is by far connections. Connections. The more connections you make every week, and take a long-term view of those connections, a long-term view, not short-term view. You've got to take a long-term view of all the connections you make, and all those connections you make, a big percentage of them you're going to be getting offered some inventory from. Over a period of time, you're going to get offered some stock, pallets or truckloads of stock from these contacts that you make and stay in contact with over weeks, months, years, or whatever. The great thing about it is when you put time and effort in to build these lists of contacts that I teach you to build, you've got to think, right, I've got that list now. I've got that for life. I've got that list for life, and I'm going to be keeping in contact with that list that I've built, and I'm going to get some offers on that list of contacts long term. So, the effort you put in, you will see long term, that effort that you put in. It can be boring and unsexy building contacts. It is. There's nothing glamorous about building connections, and it can be like that. As I say, there are ways you can do it using virtual assistants, so you're not having to build connections yourself. But if you're doing it yourself, yeah, it can be boring and unsexy. It's just life. It's just how it is. But the work you put in, you will reap those rewards long term, without a doubt, guys. All right, I'm back from my little spin in my old Merc. Thanks for watching. That was my little video on the #1 secret to flipping inventory that will pay you back forever and ever and ever. Have a good weekend, guys. All the best.